Hello listeners, my name is Cliff Ratza. I'm the author of two ongoing series of novels, the Lightning Brain series and its sequel, the Keeper series. And in addition to being an author and a writing coach, I teach at universities and have a consulting business. If you would like to learn more about me, my books, or my writing coach activities, please contact Prime Solutions via the lightningbrainseries.com website. Now, I try to make videos that I think authors and writers and most people might enjoy listening to. And I try to cover material that you might not see on the news or in YouTube or other videos. I figure that if I can't find a different point of view, there's no reason for me to add something that you can find elsewhere. Well, the title of this video is The Attack of the Algorithms. Humans might be an endangered species. And here's why. We hear so much about the inroads algorithms are making in many parts of our lives. They power our cell phones, help us make online purchases, and they show the government where we are. And when it comes to thinking, might they take over for us? Well, let's take a look at what the experts say. And I'll begin with Nobel Prize winning behavioral psychologist Daniel Kahneman, whose two books, Thinking Fast and Slow and Noise, tell us a great deal about the strengths and weaknesses of our thinking process. So first, here's an excerpt from a summary of his most recent book, Noise, which came out last year. It is co-authored with Olivier Sibony and Cass Sunstein. And like many of Kahneman's books, this one blends anecdotes with some of his pioneering behavioral psychological studies. And though long, it reads quick and gives guidelines for applying its recommendations. The authors kick things off by distinguishing between bias, that's systematic deviation, and noise, which is random scatter. The book then sustains a relentless focus on explaining and documenting the wallop packed by the simple and omnipresent error of noise and what decision makers can do about it. The studies and statistics make a compelling case that noise does at least as much damage as bias, undermining fairness and justice, wasting time and money, and damaging physical and mental health. Kahneman and his colleagues show how unwanted variation in judgments, those are evaluations, and decisions, those are choices, how the unwanted variation in each creates noisy systems which plague professionals, including criminal judges, insurance underwriters, forensic scientists, futurists, and physicians, who routinely make wildly varied judgments and decisions about cases they're working on. Systems are noisy in part because different professionals apply different standards. There is disturbing evidence, for example, that when multiple physicians evaluated identical cases for evidence of heart disease, tuberculosis, endometriosis, skin or breast cancer, they agreed on diagnosis only about 2/3 of the time. In such noisy systems, errors add up rather than cancel each other out. As the authors put it, if two felons, who both should be sentenced to 5 years in prison, receive sentences of 3 and 7 years, justice has not, on average, been done. Systems are also noisy because over time, the same professionals apply inconsistent standards. To illustrate, a study of 22 physicians who each examined the same 13 angiograms 2 times, several months apart, found that they disagreed with themselves between 63 and 92% of the time. To explain such swings, the authors use research on occasion noise, fluctuations in a person's mood, fatigue, physical environment, and prior performance that are objectively irrelevant, yet shape judgments. Like the study titled "Clouds Make Nerds Look Good," which examined 682 actual decisions by college admissions officers, they weighted applicants' academic strengths more heavily on cloudier days and applicants' non-academic strengths more heavily on sunnier days. The book Noise digs deep into the details of unwanted variation, including its causes and components, how to measure it, and the interplay between noise and bias. The authors tackle the question why groups, that's individuals versus decision-making groups, can amplify noise, and how guidelines, rules, and algorithms can reduce it. And they provide a well-stocked toolbox to help decision makers identify and reduce system noise. They suggest that conducting a noise audit is a useful first step. When an insurance company did one, executives were stunned. Estimates by multiple underwriters who evaluated identical claims were 5 times noisier than expected. The executives calculated that such noise costs the company hundreds of millions of dollars each year. Kahneman, Simoni, and Sunstein devote 8 chapters to methods for reducing noise, plus 3 appendices to help readers conduct noise audits, develop checklists to improve group decisions, and improve predictions. We learn about hallmarks of people who dampen rather than amplify system noise. This includes people prone to slow and careful systems 2 thinking rather than jumping to conclusions, which is a central theme in Kahneman's best-selling book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And it includes actively open-minded people who constantly search for new information and update their beliefs. The author suggests that to reduce noise in the decision process, it is best to first ask multiple people to make independent judgments and then bring them together to resolve differences. And they explain how guidelines and constraints that limit intuition and idiosyncratic preferences, long known to diminish bias, also cut down on noise. For instance, they urge organizations to use structured rather than unstructured interviews to select employees. Most interviewers love the freedom to ask job candidates their favorite questions, but there is strong evidence that when multiple interviewers each ask the same questions in the same order, agreement about whom to hire is higher, and selected candidates perform better. Noise is long and nuanced. The details and evidence will satisfy rigorous and demanding readers, as well as the multiple viewpoints it offers on noise. I was distracted, however, by shifts in writing style at times. Some sentences and sections read like a psychology or statistics textbook, others like a scholarly article, and still others like the Harvard Business Review. But that is a minor complaint. Every academic, policymaker, leader, and consultant ought to read this book. It convinced me that we already know how to turn down much of the systemic noise that plagues our organizations and governments. People with the power and persistence required to apply the insights in this book, Noise, will make more humane and fair decisions, save lives, and prevent time, money, and talent from going to waste. Now, I agree with everything said in this review, but I would add this cautionary note that I extracted from the book's epilogue. It imagines what organizations would look like if they were redesigned using less noisy models, which means replacing a lot of judgment and decision-making with AI-empowered computers, or perhaps helping people after humans have chunked the work into pieces people could handle. Then they could get together to understand what the computers are telling them and hold structured meetings to implement the directives. It makes no predictions about how or when this could happen, but it hopes that you, the reader, are among those who can seize the opportunity. This sounds a bit ominous to me. Well, let's proceed to a review of Kahneman's earlier book, Thinking Fast and Slow, co-authored by Amos Tversky. It presents their seminal work that led to Kahneman's Nobel Prize for Economics, awarded in 2002. The book's title says that our brains are wired in two ways: to think fast and intuitively, which is sometimes error-prone, which means we think heuristically and with biases, and to think slow and logically, using statistical models, and make fewer errors that way. The book, Thinking Fast and Slow, a reviewer says that it is much more complex. It's a much more complex book than anticipated. It provokes an integrated tale that could easily have been broken down into 3 different books. One book would describe the broad psychology underlying the judgment and decision-making field. A second book would provide a contemporary history of the field through the eyes of its leading scholar. That's Kahneman. And the third book would offer a set of snapshots of Kahneman's personal journey. The field of behavioral decision-making research has proven to be remarkably robust, demonstrating effects that have had profound influences on economics, finance, marketing, medicine, law, and negotiation. Behavioral decision research has diffused to other academic areas faster than any topic in the history of psychology, and Kahneman has been recognized with the Nobel Prize in Economics, among many other well-deserved awards. But for the past 35 years, one ongoing criticism of the behavioral decision research field, particularly the work focusing on heuristics and biases, is that it doesn't offer enough detail about the psychological mechanisms underlying the fascinating effects it documents. This tension about the nature of the field and about the nature of evidence needed for journal publication may be partially responsible for behavioral decision research developing more in professional schools than in psychology departments. And of course, there are other explanations as well. Then, with so much of the field drifting away from psychology departments, there was less of a push for researchers to explain the underlying psychological mechanisms. Answering the many questions about psychological mechanisms underlying behavioral decision research is at the core of the book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And these answers represent the first of the 3 books specified above. In the early history of the field, many judgment and decision-making researchers were content to demonstrate these interesting and important effects along with their impact, their generalizability, and, surprisingly for work coming out of psychology, the need to redefine traditional neoclassical model of economics as a result of Kahneman and Tversky's results. Yet the book is not defensive in responding to psychologists' criticisms. The behavioral decision researchers have ignored the mechanisms and psychological processes underlying these effects. Rather, Kahneman provides a history of the demonstration approach that he and Amos Tversky developed and perfected, starting in 1969 in Israel. He provides vivid details on how he and Tversky would set about looking for biases in their own judgments. Then he describes how they sought to develop demonstrative projects to show that the effects were robust. But he also conveys a concern for the underlying mechanisms as a source for understanding the demonstrations that they were providing, a concern that often did not show up in their earlier writings. The book provides a comprehensive and integrated treatment of the role that two different cognitive systems play in explaining our judgments and decisions. Adopting Stanovich and West's System 1, that's thinking fast, and the System 2 distinction, which is thinking slow, Kahneman explains the System 1 thinking, or the intuitive reactions and quick judgments that we rely on for most decisions, is also the process that leads to far greater biases in judgment. And he documents recent advances in how System 2, our more deliberative thought processes, can be used to dampen the negative effects of our intuitive judgments. So the book, which is actually 3 books in one, is a fascinating read. It is rather long, but each chapter has a great summary and bullet point observations for how to apply what it's talking about. I've read the book numerous times and used it in all the business classes I teach. And I pretty much agree with the review I just summarized. Well, now that we have a good overview of our cognitive strengths and weaknesses, let's summarize a thorough article that talks about the future of humans and artificial intelligence. The article is titled Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Humans. Here it goes. Experts say the rise of artificial intelligence will make most people better off over the next decade or so. But many people have concerns about how advances in AI will affect what it means to be human, to be productive, or to exercise free will. So let's look into the issue. A vehicle and person recognition system for use by law enforcement is demonstrated at last year's GPU technology conference. That's General Processing Utility. The GPU technology conference in Washington, which highlights new uses for artificial intelligence and deep learning. Digital life is augmenting human capacities and disrupting old human activities. Code-driven systems have spread to more than half of the world's inhabitants in ambient information and connectivity, offering previously unimagined opportunities and unprecedented threats. As emerging algorithm-driven artificial intelligence continues to spread, will people be better off than they are today? Nearly 1,000 technology pioneers, innovators, developers, business and policy leaders, researchers and activists answered this question in a canvassing. The experts predicted networked artificial intelligence will amplify human effectiveness, but also threaten human autonomy, agency, and capabilities. They spoke of the wide-ranging possibilities that computers might match or even exceed human intelligence, and capabilities on tasks such as complex decision-making, reasoning and learning, sophisticated analytics and pattern recognition, visual acuity, speech recognition, and language translation. They said that smart systems in communities, in vehicles, in buildings and utilities, on farms and in business processes will save time, money, and lives, and offer opportunities for individuals to enjoy a more customized future. Many focus their optimistic remarks on healthcare and the many possible applications of AI in diagnosing and treating patients or helping senior citizens live fuller and healthier lives. They were also enthusiastic about AI's role in contributing to broad public health programs built around massive amounts of data that may be captured in the coming years about everything from personal genomes to nutrition. Additionally, a number of these experts predicted that AI would abet long anticipated changes in formal and informal educational systems. Yet, most experts, regardless of whether they are optimistic or not, express concern about the long-term impact of these new tools on the essential elements of being human. All respondents in this non-scientific canvassing were asked to elaborate on why they felt AI would leave people better off or not. Many shared deep worries. And here is a list of what they consider to be threats. AI-based machines don't have emotional intellect. Emotional intellect is what we can be proud of. We can express feelings, show emotions, and read people immediately. Let's take an example with customer service. Business cannot replace all their customer service with artificial intelligence. People want to have personal interactions, and robots are not able to show empathy and feelings as much as the customers want. Thus, without personal interaction, businesses can end up losing customers. AI isn't smart enough to do creative work. With more AI in the world, humans get a chance to take on increasingly creative jobs. But it's the people that do the creating. It's not only about the creative sector. Even in finance or coding, we need more creative. We need to be more creative to begin and fulfill great projects. Companies are realizing that the true potential of AI is to amplify their employees' skills by replacing repetitive, error-prone manual tasks with intelligent, automated solutions. Employees can then spend more time doing creative and higher priority tasks. People can build relationships, while AI will never be able to do it. Many things are built on one-on-one relationships. We have to deal and collaborate with different people. Moreover, while working in teams, by working in teams of many, it shows us better results. Furthermore, according to many studies, teams show better and more creative results. People can show empathy, while AI will never display it. We can share our feelings, happiness, enjoyment, sadness, gratitude, hope, kindness, optimism. The list of all types of emotions that people experience is nearly endless. And we can hardly imagine AI showing all the expressions and readings of other people's emotions better than humans can do. A lot of jobs require establishing trust and a human-to-human connection in order to get people to relax, open up, and share about themselves. AI-based machines are capable of imitating human speech, but they don't have empathy and are missing that human touch. AI can't think outside the box or their code. These days, AI can't find creative ways of solving various emerging problems because their code does not allow it. Robots are programmed to work within their framework. It is possible that someday a machine will be able to think on its own, but in the real world, this will not be achieved very soon. So let's wrap up this article. The world's AI technology is still far from the human-like intelligence portrayed in popular science fiction. Despite all the hype, most AI computers are designed to be very good at solving specific problems in the context of a very particular data system. Human creativity, insight, and contextual awareness, on the other side, are key to making AI work. The reason for this is simple. Humans will continue to deliver value that machines are not capable of. So, artificial intelligence abilities will complement people rather than replicate us. That is why top-tier and forward-thinking organizations want to start using AI, and already have, to enhance organizational agility, productivity, and experience. Overall, we can see the potential that more jobs will be created with further AI development. Someone has to create all those AI robots and all other possible types of algorithms. Moreover, people have more opportunities to try new jobs that do not yet exist. And let me wrap up by mentioning a recent Wall Street Journal review of a book titled The Alignment Problem by Brian Christian. Its takeaway is this: sophisticated, machine learning-based algorithms do what they're supposed to, but still can make bad decisions. Perhaps man and computer are meant to be partners. Well, that'll do it for this video. If my video tickled your curiosity, I encourage you to watch more YouTube videos that talk about how AI will impact our lives. Then you can decide for yourself if AI will be our friend or foe in the years to come. So thank you for listening, and bye-bye until next time.